Hello, this is Jeremy Webster from Collector's Maze, and I am here today with Katalin Rodriguez-Ogren, who you all know, though she might have been wearing a mask at the time, right? As Katana and Melina, and I believe Jade,
Yep,
originally from Mortal Kombat too. Katalin, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on this Sunday and spending some time with us here. So what led you to Mortal Kombat? How did you end up with that gig?
Uh, I was basically training at a gym where Danny Pacina worked, and I was just there on my own time, working out and training and practicing. And he had kind of approached me if I was interested in something like Mortal Kombat, or he kind of actually explained it to me at first. I think the first thing he asked me was, "Can you also kick?" Because I was boxing when he saw me. And I explained that I could and that I had a traditional martial arts background. And he was like, okay. Then he asked me to do some kicks and so forth. And it just kind of all clicked and came together that way. But I happened to be obviously at the right place in the right time when they were looking for someone to play the characters of the female ninjas.
Mm-hmm. And did was it something where you had different costumes, or were they able to go through and like color change them?
They color changed them. I only had one costume, and that was the blue.
So that had to be kind of something interesting as you have this thing and it comes up, yeah, sure, I'll go do that. And then like 2 years later, it's this giant cultural phenomenon. What was that like?
Yeah. I mean, people ask that for sure all the time. I think I was a little bit more taken in by all of it because I was just so on my own path for building my career that had nothing to do with being an actor or anything like that. So for Danny and Hosang and Tony and Rich, those guys, they wanted to be in the entertainment industry. So it was very meaningful for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was a really amazing, thing for them to be part of. And that's not to say that I don't totally appreciate the fact that I got to be part of this and I'm bonded with these guys for the last couple decades. But I didn't do a lot to leverage it at the time because I was just very fixated on my goals in building my career and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have a desire to cross over into the entertainment. I did it for fun.
Yeah.
But it wasn't my career goal. Their dreams were to work in it. So I'm glad that they were able to get a little bit more out of it than I was at the time.
And I think that when we talk about the entertainment industry versus the other, I think that it would be good for our viewers to know that you are a very, very busy person.
I am.
Going on, you've got black belts of what, 4 martial art disciplines?
Yeah.
I mean, and what were all 4 of them? Because I read
there's Japanese karate, Okinawan karate, Taekwondo, and then Kung Fu. But I spent probably equal, if not more, time in the combat sports. Boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, Krav Maga, JKD, and so forth. So once I had kind of gotten through, I don't know, I was maybe 26 or 27, I want to say. I started to practice traditional martial arts a lot less, even though I was still doing it. But I would say 70% of my time from the age of maybe 23 on was in the combat area. And about 30% was still practicing that traditional martial art application. And that's just because I saw the growth of reality-based and combat sports and really had a good knack for it and really liked it. So, and it was just very different. So I started to put a lot more of my training time and hours into that.
Mm-hmm. I think I was reading on your blog, and there was kind of a thought that struck me, is that you have seen the sort of evolution from, I don't know if the word is traditionalist, of traditional, martial arts
Yeah.
styles, you know, and they're sort of isolatory nature from each other. Wow, I used the word isolatory. And you've seen it evolve sort of into these more like the combat sports, the MMA,
Yeah.
things like that. What has that been like to watch it evolve and to watch sort of those barriers fall down?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, MMA and the combat sports kind of made traditional sports become a little bit more honest in really what they were. And while they were so much more in what they did from a fighting perspective, a half a century to a century ago, at the end of the day, I feel that a lot of the martial arts started to recognize that it was okay that their art didn't do everything. It doesn't need to be everything. It can just be what it is. So that was something that I definitely, people did not agree with me very early on in the 80s. I started in the 80s to recognize that, I loved karate, but karate really wasn't what you would use in a fight. I think it helped that I was a huge boxing fan, and it was just growing up at a time where Bruce Lee was obviously the most influential martial artist of our time.
Yeah.
Despite his life being very short and his contributions being very short, they were short-lived, but
Yeah.
they've carried on for decades and decades and will continue to do so. I was kind of one of these people that, I don't know if I was being defiant, but and I was a Bruce Lee fan. Don't get me wrong. I was a huge Bruce Lee fan, where I was like, well, the 1-inch punch, that's not really how it works. You know what I mean? Like, even though I understand the theory of the 1-inch punch is like really important, right? I was like, yeah, if you really want to learn to punch for reality, you have to punch like a boxer. So that would create like a little sense of defiance, and people would just not think that was cool. They took it as like I was disrespecting Bruce Lee. It wasn't that. It was like, sometimes you just can't recreate the wheel. I mean, there's a reason why boxers are masters at what they do. And I think it was one of these things where a lot of the traditional martial artists and masters and black belts, they really wanted their art to solve and answer every single question. And it just doesn't need to. It just doesn't need to. And I think today people recognize that. And the truth is that all the things that reality martial arts isn't, is everything traditional martial arts is. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And whereas traditional martial arts is a lot of things that are in reality combat arts. Not everything, but some of it. But the one thing that traditional martial arts will always have on its side is the practice and the self-discipline that is, in my opinion, still better than the way in which most people train and practice in the combat kind of MMA realm. There's just different attitude and value system and rituals. And I think the rituals of traditional martial arts will always supersede, what you get in a combat environment. And, one can also argue that there's just no time for all of that when you're doing tactical combat style or MMA training. And I think it just depends. But, I always relish Danny's videos on his Instagram, because he's kind of one of the few people I know that's still the keeper of the stories. I've lost, I would have to relearn my stories, katas and forms, and it wouldn't take long to do it. But, I had to make room for more new information, if that makes sense.
Yes.
It's kind of like I only have 5 gigs of space, and I need to keep wiping part of my, my memory bank to make room for the new. And I'm very in the new right now, but new doesn't necessarily mean that what I do is necessarily better. It's just what the new progressions are in training and performance and combat and stuff like that. But I wish I had time. And I've always said that when I finally kind of retire, so to speak, that would be my opportunity to return to the traditional martial arts, because you can practice them without them being this like high intensity kind of external practice of martial arts. You know, Danny has both internal and external knowledge. And, you know, like I said, someone has to be the keeper of the stories. The stories are important if we want to keep the arts alive.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. You know, kind of talk on what you were talking about, and before we started the interview, I talked a little bit about my son, because he came up in Taekwondo, and I actually think he got his black belt around 12 or 13. We'd started him at like the age of 5 or something like that. He was little, and as he was coming up, he didn't do a lot of the competition, because he wasn't, you know, he wasn't the most fleet-footed, dexterous person. But the thing was, he had the opportunity to do it, but it was the discipline he learned through the processes have been a value to him through his life. And as he got a little later on in it, he had one of those kids who's like, well, if you get in a real fight, you know, it's not this. And he was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, because it was the sport, and by then it was absolutely, you know, the discipline of it, and the camaraderie.
Yeah. And the truth is, you know, people who get into martial arts, you know, because they want to be a fighter, they're probably not getting into traditional martial arts then for the right reasons. I think, you know, it's definitely a gateway to become a fighter. Like, you can become a fighter without traditional martial arts, and you can become a fighter. You're probably a better student with traditional martial arts in your background, right? Because there are some value systems that are laid down in who you are and how you learn. And I think that that's valuable. I mean, most of the people I've met in the MMA and combat sports world, I wouldn't say that, you know, they have the same discipline and value system in how I view combat sports. But that's because, you know, I got 4 black belts before I even really learned submission or MMA and so forth. But, you know, I'm sure someone could argue it the other way and say that, you know, they're at the highest level of practitioners in today's day and age. And no, by it, I kind of think it's person to person, but I definitely feel that, I do feel that I am in the minority that really truly has seen the growth of martial arts from a practitioner's perspective. You know, there's people that have been fans of it, but it's different when you do it. And that's something that I really do like to, you know, I have no problem with people being fans and historians, and, you know, they can quote way more things than I can quote, and reference, you know, more books and everything like that. But at the end of the day, I've been doing it, not kind of academically, you know what I mean? It's kind of like an academic versus, you know, a practitioner. You know, Danny's been a lifelong practitioner, you know, of martial arts. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, when people really try to challenge my perspective, I just say, look, I've been doing it for 41 years. The only year I took off was my senior year of high school. And then I've been back at it, you know, an average of, let's say, 3 days a week for my entire life. You know, that doesn't count the years, the decade where it was 5 days a week. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there is a different kind of relationship with martial arts than people who kind of view it from books. I feel that I have a right to kind of protect that hierarchy, you know, because I put the time in, you know. So I still want to see martial arts, traditional martial arts thrive. I don't want to see it be lost. I know there's a lot less schools, fewer schools in the country. Because, you know, MMA and combat sports obviously have filled a lot of that space. But I'm very grateful to people like a Danny who are out there still teaching the traditional art forms. You know, even like I have a buddy out in Florida named Pow, and he is continuously the one keeping Kali and Eskrima, the art of it, alive. And he, as much as he wants the adult market, he's just going after children. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if we don't keep passing it down, there's nobody there that's going to pay it forward.
It's going to pay
you
it
know?
Yep.
Yeah. So traditional martial arts, I think, had a huge influence in Mortal Kombat. So kind of to circle back to that, I know John Tobias and Ed Boon and Ed, they were all extremely, they were big fans. I know for sure John Tobias was, and I don't know that just because Danny told me, but because I became friends with John because Danny introduced us, obviously, and then I was in the game. I got along fantastic with all the guys. John and I think, got along extremely well. I think the friendships and the camaraderie at the time was, I think all of us would love to go in a time machine back in time just to do the day when we filmed again, because it was like so much fun. It was just so much fun. So those guys were such big fans of traditional martial arts, and clearly there's enough homages throughout the game that I think everybody sees influences from, from Big Night and
Trouble in Little China.
Trouble in Little China to Bruce Lee to Kung Fu Theater to Van Damme's films. You can't not be influenced by all those things,
Big Trouble itself has gone down as a, when it came out, it wasn't like huge. And I was a kid.
It wasn't
first, but it has built its audience over the years. Like several of those Carpenter films have done that, but that one in particular is that people kind of didn't know what to make of it at the time. And it took them 10 or so years to go, oh, okay.
It's unbelievably funny.
Oh, it is. It's a fantastic
movie. Big Trouble Little China was definitely, I remember loving it when it came out. Like, I got it. I remember my dad kind of like, this is dumb. I don't really get it, when I saw it with him, which fine. But we were definitely all influenced by all these things. It was, I'm sorry, give me 1 second to turn down a call.
No worries.
All right. So the films we were all influenced by films. We were all influenced by comic books. We were all influenced by Bruce Lee's and Jackie Chan's and even not Steven Seagal, Van Damme. And, these were all huge influencers. We were all junkies, no different than any other fan. It's not like when we did Mortal Kombat, we stopped being fans of everything else that was martial in the world. You know what I mean?
Right,
we were still secretly, watching, Enter the Dragon. Rocky. Oh my God, the Rocky films. I still have my trading cards that you would buy at the corner store.
Wow. Yeah. I remember those now that you say it.
Yeah.
The Rocky trading Tops did them, I think.
Yeah. In my first location that I opened up, I took all my stuff out of my mom was so wonderful. She saved all my crap. And I had all these original movie posters, Kung Fu Theater movie posters, and I framed them all and hung them, from, Enter the Dragon to Five Fingers of Death to Fist and Fury, to Lady Devil. All these films. So we were fans, and Danny probably could tell you more about all the things that they were fans of as a kid. But having been friends with all those guys, I know they were fans too.
That had to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Tell us about your gyms, the Pow gyms. You got what, 4 of them?
No. I just have one location. I'm in Chicago's West Loop. I opened it up in 2001, so 21 years. It opened up originally as a mixed martial arts school, not MMA, but a mixed martial arts school. So we had Kung Fu, we had kickboxing, we had jiu-jitsu, we had Krav Maga, we had boxing, and then we had fitness classes. So the idea was that a person could come under one roof and train in multiple disciplines and have the experience of traditional martial arts, fitness, and then the combat kind of combat style sports and arts. And over the last 21 years, it's definitely changed. It's gone along with, what's actually relevant to be in business. So 21 years, about in year 10 or 12, I did get rid of offering the traditional Kung Fu, was no longer. And then slowly but surely, I knew performance training was really the future. And it's kind of like where there's the most prolific amount of research kind of being put is in performance and speed training. So I ended up moving my location and trimmed down kind of the class offerings, and then added the Parisi Speed School to the facility. And now we offer a full Parisi Speed and Sports Performance program, which is called the Parisi Speed School, inside of Pow Gym. And then we have combat sports for adults, combat sports for kids.
Cool. It's very holistic, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very sustainable, it's hard to teach and practice the same martial art, I think, for your whole life.
Right.
So it's definitely a much more career sustainable path for me to be able to continuously grow and learn more, and then teach other things. Even though I still teach boxing and adult fitness, I still teach all these things in Krav Maga, but I also get to teach these other things that I'm continuously growing, that of course cross over and trickle down into these other things that I do and make them even better.
Like, what is your weekly schedule like?
Well, on Monday, I work 5:30 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. On Tuesdays, I go from 7 to 6-ish. Wednesdays, I go from 6:30 to 7. Thursdays, I go from 7 to 5. And then Fridays, I work like 7 to 3. And Saturdays, I work 8:30 to 2.
But you get to keep Sunday.
We are not open on Sundays.
So that, there's a giant statement there with all the things you do, and you have a family, and you have such dedication to all of these different things under this envelope. I mean, and I think that's an interesting perspective to come from, is that drive. I mean, what was it like for starting the school?
Oh, I mean, it was definitely hard, but is it hard compared to what it is now? You know what I mean? I think every adult who's a parent and who has kids, especially if your kids are in sports, once they get into sports, you look back at your life and you're like, I was not busy compared to now. You know what I mean? Like, I have that, like, even today, you know what I mean? I've already told everybody, like, hey, we are sitting down and planning the week out, because, we got to figure out, Jackson has, 2 volleyball games this week. Isis has practice this week. Colton's got a skateboarding session. My husband's on shift. And then now somebody is doing a retirement party. We're leaving on spring break. And I still have my regular workload. Like, how are we going to get this all done and pack, so it definitely, I wouldn't say like I'm successful at it every single week. Those weeks where you're like, holy crap, nobody got groceries. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you order in food way more than you want, and really way more than you really should and can afford to do. But, it's always kind of a juggle, but I am really fortunate that my circle of friends are unbelievable. The families that are around me, which I rely on a ton, that help me really in many ways in raising my kids, carpooling and things like that. Having a community and a family is how I've been successful. The support from the people around me is how I've been able to do it all, because there's no way I can do it by myself. And there's moments where I'm really hard on my kids, and my kids are like, we're the only ones who do chores. Everybody else, doesn't have this. And I'm just like, look, man, this is what it is. What it is what it is. It's not that their parents don't work, but their lifestyle of their job is just different. When they leave work, they leave work.
Yeah.
That's not my life. And I try to remind them that you guys benefit from the fruits that are bared by the business, in that our community is so tight. Yes, I work more than other parents, but you benefit because of that, and that's, I think, every parent, right? Isn't that what we're always trying to do, is point out things that are, special for you as a family. Every family has something that it's like, well, we do it this way because we're lucky and we can't. That family does that because they have this in their life, or, just as, this family has, they make more money, they get more benefits. We do this. And it's not always about money. It's just leveraging who you are as a family. I'm able to, and I knew very early on that having a community to support you would help you become more successful. Not that I don't pay it forward. I do. I am there for lots of, before the pandemic, I was the person, because I work right by my kids' school. I was on the list to pick kids up when kids were sick, because I was my own boss and they couldn't always leave work. And I was the person who would gladly go pick them up and take them home and hang out, so there's all these things that, you have to figure out as an adult, especially if you really don't want to give anything up. You got to find a way to do it. There's always a way.
There's always a way.
I'll be honest though. Yeah. I mean, I don't sit and do nothing. There are people that spend a lot more time watching TV, or they need, I don't have that luxury, but that's because I prioritized other things. It's not that I don't want to watch TV. Of course, who doesn't want to do those things? But there's other things I want more.
Yes.
So I'm really good at kind of recognizing that. Like, I know that if I want to make it to, my daughter's volleyball tournament on a weekend, and it's going to be all day Saturday, I have to find a way to figure out how I can leave. And it might mean I have to work longer on another day. You know what I mean? That's just that's just how it is. And I don't get to make all my kids stuff.
It just kind of,
but they understand.
So are you going to be coming out to Wichita for the Level Up ICT Con?
I believe so. I believe I was invited, and Danny did confirm that I am going to be heading out there with him and a couple of the other castmates. And I'm, I think just waiting for what those details look like. But I believe I was formally invited, and I have accepted for sure. It's in October, correct?
It is. Yep.
Yeah.
I don't have the exact date in front of me, but yeah, it is in October. You ever been to Wichita before?
I have. I don't remember when it was, but I think it was like 96 or 97. I had like 100 city speaking tour that I did over 2 years, and Wichita was on that circuit.
Speaking tour. What were you talking on?
I was hired by a company called Fit Tour, and they organized at the time tours across America for people who were like leaders in different genres of fitness. And then you traveled to these cities, and then you educated people on whatever your subject matter was. And then you would go to another city. I would do like 2 cities a weekend. It was exhausting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Two cities a weekend. They're
but things like that were amazing, because that was the stuff that I used all that money for my seed money to open up my gym.
Yeah.
So
you put in the time and you got the reward.
You got it.
Now you got to put in time somewhere else.
Yep.
Well, other than that, is there anything else you'd like our listeners to know about today? Anything coming up?
No, I look forward to coming out to Wichita. It's a new event for me. So that's exciting to do something different and new and meet new people. And, I've been fortunate to meet a lot of the fans here in the Midwest at a couple different events. And I was in Nashville and met a lot of the Mortal Kombat fans down there, but never met any of the fans out in your neck of the woods. So that's going to be really great to meet some new people that have really loved the game for so long.
I was of that generation. Yeah. Where it was, And I don't know what it is, but 2, you got part 1, but part 2 was just, 1 might have been the big breakthrough thing, but we all played 2.
Yeah. 2 by far. I mean, I think even to this day, it holds up.
It does.
I mean, especially when you think about like all those characters were real and we did our stuff. We made those movements. We could physically do them. There were things that we did that the camera couldn't even catch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the technology wasn't there yet. So I think when you put it in that context, I like to always kind of think back on the fact that, I could do all those things. You know what I mean? That was really me doing my movements. I mean, little things like the bicycle kick. Obviously, Ho-Sung couldn't float for 2 seconds and throw that many kicks, but he did something almost exactly like that. Like his physical abilities when we were unbelievable, the things he could pull off back then. So when you think about the things that we did, like I could actually do aerials. I could actually do, handsprings. Not that that's like unheard of, right? Lots of people can do gymnastics, but the characters were not faking it. We were actually doing things that we were really good at. And I think that's really kind of cool.
I do think the part of the timelessness of the first several Mortal Kombat games, 1, 2, and I think 3, I don't remember 4 offhand, is as computer game technology sort of moved forward, everything became 3D polygons, right? And if you notice, like a game will come out like that, and over time it will sort of lose its visual relevance, like, oh, this is old and dated or something like that. But because the Mortal Kombat games did do that sort of mix of the backgrounds that were a little bit CGI and a little bit photorealistic, and the characters are photorealistic, I think that that's actually given the game a sort of timelessness, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think the original costuming was actually really awesome. I don't know if John Tobias is the one to take credit for almost all of that, being the illustrator that put things down on paper first for a lot of the characters' visual. I know Danny definitely had a lot of influence in some of the accessories and the way in which the characters, a little bit of the style change. But even the original design, like, the costuming, like I love my costume from the original game. I think it's awesome. To me, it's very timeless, like kind of the Wonder Woman costume, which was this, I mean, her costume was way more revealing than mine, but nonetheless, it doesn't need to be more. So that's the one thing, if I had to say anything about the evolution of the character, is they really kind of made it look, it's just so Barbarella-y now, it's so over the top, vampy, which I get because, the industry went that way. The whole graphic novel kind of look was very, very relevant in illustration and art. And I totally understand that. But I really think that when you look at it, those don't look like real people. So that's the other thing. It's like, as you make it look more crazy like that, it looks more unrealistic. Yeah. But for real characters, the design of the costumes I thought were fantastic. And I think that's timeless.
I think wow. Excuse me. Yeah, I would agree completely with that. And you notice it actually in the last few years with the incidents and stuff that occurred at, like, say Blizzard, for example, the industry went down a certain avenue and now they're trying to reel it back, Yeah. So yeah, definitely. And it needed it. So.
Yeah. I think, games and films and it's gone, they all go that gratuitous route, right?
Yep.
It's just excess for excess. It's not really original. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's the thing. And I think that's the pressure of fans. I think that's the pressure of, all the things that go into like the business of games and the business of the industry behind comics and pop culture and movies and TV and everything, is you got to keep pushing the envelope. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, I think you lose a little bit of quality. You know what I mean? It becomes unoriginal to just kind of push the envelope. Kind of I think of the saying, the jump the shark, when Fonzie jumped the shark. Yeah, kind of thing. I think Mortal Kombat did that. And I think that they are recognizing that the fans don't need that. But I also have no really ties to what Mortal Kombat is today. You know what I mean? I have no clue. I doubt the current art directors even know who we are, to be honest, from the original game. And I think a lot of people who are in the forefront now probably feel like they're just copying if they don't do something new. But there's only so much new you can do.
Yeah, with that type of game. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, with a punch kick game.
Yeah.
I mean, even, I look at games like Call of Duty and all these other games. It's like they really push the envelope for a while, but then, now they're becoming a little bit more intelligent. And I'm speaking more from like a parent's perspective, watching it visually.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be interesting to see what they continue to do with Mortal Kombat as a game. I think it'd be amazing if they actually did bring the original characters back. I mean, they CGI everything else. If there's something we can't do now, they could certainly fix, they could make it happen. The truth is, like most of us, like Danny, Tony, Phil, me, Hosung, we still all practice. We may not be able to do flips and aerials like we used to do and butterfly kicks, but we can still do a lot of that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see, what they do.
Yeah. In those days, it was like 1, 2, and 3. You had your 1 or 2 characters.
Mm-hmm.
And there were all the peripheral characters, but you had your 1 and 2 that you played, and mine was like Raiden and Scorpion, for example. Mainly Raiden. I like the lightning. But the way it sort of is now, you might have 30 characters and you don't know, you know what I mean? You fight them, but that interesting investment that you made in, as weird as that sounds, and learning the moves and all this stuff kind of gets lost in this mass. And then they're going to come out with something that's an add-on pack with the Terminator and Freddy Krueger, and you're like, why are they
yeah. So, but it's easy for me to say that I think that is just not really what the essence of the game is.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know. Clearly they're doing their market research. Their market research must show that, gamers between the ages of 10 and 18 or 10 and 20, that's what they want to see. They want to see more characters, more options, more skins, more avatars, more. That's what I'm assuming, right? I mean, they must know what they're doing. Just because the original generation of Mortal Kombat and the people that played Street Fighter and Tekken and all the original kind of punch kick games, would rather see it kind of be not revert, but just be more along the lines of the original.
Yeah.
That's at least what I've heard from the fans, at the events I've done. Doesn't mean that that's what their market research shows, No.
And that's,
so I don't know. I don't know. It'll be interesting. I haven't actually, and maybe I'm just not paying attention, I haven't actually seen a lot coming out of Netherlands, none of those guys that talk about it being the 30-year anniversary. I feel like the fans are the ones that have been reminding everybody that it's the 30-year anniversary.
Now that you say that, that's actually kind of true. I haven't seen anything from, obviously Midway isn't a thing anymore, but
right.
You would think that they would have some kind of play up on that. I mean, every other game does. I remember the year before Doom Eternal launched, id and Bethesda had 25th anniversary, wallpapers and things with the Doom guy.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been any of that for Mortal Kombat. That is weird now that you say that.
I mean, it's April already and there's nothing. I'm shocked that even if they want to ignore us, you know what I'm saying, and start with game 3, there's really no acknowledgement of the game's tenure in a way, which I find surprising. And I'm sure there's a story behind it that someone knows in the gaming world. But I actually thought there would be a little bit more of a nostalgic acknowledgement about how this game has survived 3 decades. I mean, you know better than I do. I mean, is there another game that's actually lasted this long?
Of the, I mean, there's like, is it Dead or Alive was a thing, but it was, what I remember that it wasn't, part of the thing that made Mortal Kombat special was the style of the game,
Yeah.
because I had Street Fighter 2 and it was okay, but I went back to Mortal Kombat because of the way it played and the way the universe was. And, I think they still do like Dead or Alive, and I think they're getting ready to do another Street Fighter thing, but it doesn't seem like anything else has the buzz everywhere as the Mortal Kombat games do. Because, Street Fighter 2, for us of a generation, it's like, oh, so how have they packaged Street Fighter 2 again? I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and all those games technically are still surviving and still played and have a fanfare, and Mario Brothers and everything like that.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly not taking away from those games because they are still wildly popular, and all the way down to like kindergartners, love Mario Brothers and everything. And a lot of it has to do with what's on the handheld and on the iPads and so forth. But I mean, I do think it's a pretty significant accomplishment that, they have been able to keep the game alive. And certainly I don't take credit for that. I mean, I think, the way in which they've obviously been pushing the envelope in the right direction.
Yeah.
Because they've kept fan bases. They have bred a fan base decade after decade.
Mm-hmm.
In theory, you should lose, right? And then have to cultivate a new one. But they seem to just breed a legacy of people playing the game. And they've recently, I think in the last 5 years, pulled in a ton of new generation to play the game. And I don't know the statistics on it. I just know from my observations as a parent and someone who is an expert in children, because I have kids around me all the time, that, short of Madden, Mortal Kombat seems to still be pretty popular.
Hadn't gone away. It's still out.
Yeah.
Awesome. You got anything more you want to add for the viewers before we run away?
No, not at all.
Awesome.
No, I'm good.
This has been an awesome conversation. Thank you for taking the time to do it with me.
You're welcome.
We'll look forward to meeting you in October.